Greetings, I'm Bill Kladky, the Greater Baltimore Community Housing Research Board, and I'd like to welcome you to today's edition of Neighborhood Beat. Today's show looks at the US Department of Housing and Urban Development and its various work trying to prevent foreclosures, increasing affordable housing, helping to end the recession, and to support Marylanders in all of the work that we do and we live in across our state. Our guest today is Mr. James Kelly, who is Field Office Director of the Baltimore Field Office of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I'd like to welcome you to the show.
Okay, thank you for having me, Bill. I really appreciate this chance to talk to you and to your viewers out there.
Well, thank you, Jim. It's been a while since you've been on the show, and I wanted to get an update from you because a lot of things have changed, although some things have not changed. And so thanks again for coming. First of all, for our viewers who are unfamiliar, and maybe there are some, could you tell us a little bit about the U.S. Department of HUD?
Yes, well, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development is the nation's housing agency. It's also the nation's urban department, so that our job is urban, not just cities, but urbanized areas throughout the state, and almost all of Maryland has urbanized areas in it. It's one of the most heavily urban states in the nation. But we also were active in rural areas, particularly in partnership with the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development, some of whose programs we also fund.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, thank you. And HUD's been around since the 60s.
Well, HUD's been around, it started with FHA in the 30s. We invented the 30-year mortgage. But we had urban renewal, we had community development and public housing starting in the 40s, and then in the 60s, they combined all of those separate administrations into a cabinet-level department called HUD. And so we're housing and urban development.
Yeah, I recently put out my latest edition of the newsletter and included is a birthday greeting for HUD. I guess it's 41 years old now, and people might be interested in the genesis of the department.
Well, I think that was it. It came out of the efforts to deal with the Depression, creating FHA mortgages in a very situation like this. So here we are again, where FHA mortgages are one of the most important sources of financing if people are going to buy houses. FHA has ready money available, and not every area does. FHA doesn't require high down payments. It doesn't require perfect credit. It requires good credit, but we don't have an arbitrary credit score. So it's a program that's increasingly used by all types of people, but it is and always has been a good financing mechanism for people who are buying homes.
So HUD's back to being fashionable again.
Yes, I mean, the lenders tell us they always like doing FHA mortgages, but there were some things that we tried to change that make it less attractive. And then, you know, if somebody's going to basically give you a mortgage, not ask what your income is, not ask you to prove it, not look at your credit, not look at the appraisal of the property, then that can be hard for people to resist.
Yeah.
So one of the things HUD's doing now is two things. We're doing refinancing people out of some of those bad mortgages, and we're also a major prop for people who are going out now and buying housing. We've gone up to certainly about maybe a third of all mortgages
wow.
now.
A third?
Yeah, somewhere around there, 30% up.
Let's give folks some information about how they can get more information. Could you first tell us give us some contact information for HUD, please?
Well, we're the Baltimore HUD office. The best information on all of HUD's programs is our website, which is www.hud.gov. Our local office number is 410-962-2999. 2520. And that'll get our receptionist, describe what it is that you're interested in finding out about, and she'll try and connect you with the person that you really need to speak to, because we have a lot of different programs operating out of our office. And so it's helpful to know exactly what your interest is so we can hook you up to that.
Right. And so your job as field office director, and I hope I got your title correct, is to make sure that Maryland has affordable housing and treats everybody fair?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have, that's fair housing enforcement and fair housing education is one of our primary missions, and it goes across every program that we operate. And then in addition, all housing programs. So HUD is not the housing office. We don't do code enforcement. We don't regulate every lender, but we are responsible for compliance with all types of fair housing, whether it's buying, selling, advertising, renting, lending. HUD is the lead agency for fair housing and law enforcement throughout the nation in all programs.
Great, thank you, thank you. Let's talk about HUD under President Obama. You've been field office director now for a couple of years, and you've had, as we spoke before, kind of a significant change in two large areas. For one, there's a new president since I've talked to you last, and for a second, there is the economic recovery.
Yeah, well, actually the first program that we had under that was the Neighborhood Stabilization Program, which came in under the previous administration, and that's funding us for about $46 million to Baltimore City, Montgomery, Prince George, and then to the state, and then counties throughout the state can apply to the state for those funds, and they're primarily to deal with the vacant properties in my neighborhood. If they just sit there, they'll bring down neighborhood values. And so neighborhood stabilization gives money locally to the state and local governments for them to purchase housing, fix them up, and sell it. For example, many of the local governments or state governments are working with nonprofit housing providers to get those housing to them so they can fix it up and then get it to low-income, first-time home buyers.
That's a very good thing. Everybody wins in a case like that.
Right. The other thing is what's called the American Recovery and Revitalization Act, or the Recovery Act, which was just passed, and within a week of its passing, HUD has allocated funds to the state and local governments so that they'll know what they have to spend. And to give you an idea of what some of those things are, there's $32 million to help people build affordable rental housing to help out with the low-income housing tax credit program, to build affordable rental housing.
So that's could you give us an example of a place around the Baltimore area that was built with that money in the past?
There's some of it you may be able to see, some of it you can't see. If you look at a new senior housing development around the Beltway, say, that's one of two programs. It's either low-income housing tax credit program or it's HUD's Section 202 program, which strictly operates through nonprofits. Our 202 program is a direct loan to nonprofits. We get enough for about one project per year. Our sponsors in our office are so good that we frequently get a second project that somebody can't fund. But the other types of elderly rental projects that you see that are new are likely to be funded through the low-income housing tax credit program. The other things you may not see is existing properties that have been there that kind of got run down and have been then spruced up and improved and have made more attractive and extended the commitment to serve lower-income people. And that may not be as evident, but it's just as important. And so what this money does is, because of the economy, finance, it's not as easy to sell tax credits. So this money is going through HUD's home program to the state to substitute for some of those tax credits, to allow projects that are ready to go, that, as they talk about shovel-ready, to move forward when they've been stymied by tax credits.
Yeah, it certainly sounds like HUD has stepped up to the president's objective of getting that money out there,